as we've talked about in this show, I'm Joe, just like to drink. Nico knows all the details and the science and the things that we're going to continue to jump into here. And when he told me about this concept, I had just started getting into the cocktail movement. And this is where I want to pause a little bit to say, if you notice, the people that are watching the video, we approach cocktails and whiskey a little differently. So for me, every time I jump on any kind of whiskey show, especially if I'm watching on YouTube, most of the time, the people on there don't look like me. They are a little more rugged. It's either lumberjacky looking, hipstery, or handsome gentlemen like you in camo jackets. I am on the other side of...
This is Tarjay.
It is Tarjay. I've been accused by my friends of being just a little extra. My role is for the people out there who have an affinity kind of for things, everything classic, a little Sinatra, a little Don Draper, if I may. And so I like to go to... So what I really appreciate about the cocktails, where most of the time the cocktails you were talking about are happening in these really nice, like, hotel bars, restaurants. We're not talking about a place where you're going to go get a solo cup and drink something. And there was something that appealed to me about the timelessness of it. And it really, to be really honest, it reminded me of my Gramps, because he grew up in that era of the 60s. Yeah. And I remember watching him and how much attention to detail meant so much to him. And somewhere along the way, I became this affinity for, I am much more about timeless than I am about trendy. And for me, going to these cocktail bars was a bit of like a time warp. Mm-hmm. And just back where people, for lack of a better term, just cared a little more about things, that there was some quality and stuff. And so that's where I became excited about that. About the same time, you're coming along and you start having whiskey parties and whiskey exchange parties and things like that. And that's really where I feel like where Nico and I reconnected from as theater friends into both having this affinity for whiskey, and you became all my go-to everything. If I had a question, poor guy, if I'm at a restaurant, let's say I'm out of town and I see a huge whiskey list and there's a lot of things that I'm like, oh, I don't recognize everything here. Nico's like my pocket whiskey sommelier. I'm like, hey man, what do I need to try here? What can I find back home? What's rare here? And so for me, it's been really fun. It's like I found this new hobby, and it's been cool to have one of my best friends be an expert at it. Yep. And you've been so great about explaining things to me. And what I'm excited about this show is being able to let you do all the whiskey nerd things you want, and every once in a while go, yo, Zach Morris, time out here, and back up and say, I lost you. Right. You know, because sometimes I think all of us are so into something, an expert in something, or we've just geeked out on something, we forget what we know. Yeah. And so we lose people. So you and all the whiskey nerds can just go down and talk about the specificities of like the most random corn or whatever processes we'll talk about. Sure. My job is to look out for the person, you know, that's listening in or watching in right now that's like, dude, I have no clue. I love the way this tastes. I have no clue what they're saying. So hopefully between the two of us, we leave no drinker left behind is what I want to create with this show.